Welcome to tonight's event with the Michigan Marketing Minds. Michigan Marketing Minds is dedicated to elevating and sharing innovation in marketing for the greater good. We strive to offer the entrepreneur and business community advanced marketing insights, planning tools, and operational intelligence that will help them take action and grow. We're so delighted that you're here this evening. We have a great program. I wanted to let you know that the event is brought to you by Ann Arbor Spark, a supporter of high-tech business and innovation in the Washtenaw County area, where you in fact live, and others who are joining us online live and do business. The event is being live streamed at AnnArborUSA.org thanks to Russell Video. Online viewers, please feel free to submit questions at any time. Live viewers, there'll be a microphone that will be taken around at the end of the night for questions. Just a reminder, turn off your cell phones or put them on silent. Thank you so much. Tonight, we're pleased to have Sean Hickey here, who is the COO of PWB, a local marketing firm. Sean has contributed for many years. He's been the chairperson of what was the Marketing Roundtable. He brings insight, an Irish sensibility and humor, and a dry wit, sometimes a bit of helpful skepticism to life. And he's brought an awesome team here to share with us this evening. Please welcome Sean as our moderator this evening.
Thank you, Don. Wow. Irish, yeah, okay. You know what Irish diplomacy is, don't you? The ability to tell a man to go to hell so that he looks forward to the trip. All right, so the slides today are going to be a complete and utter surprise to me, because I hear there are like 3 title slides now, and Tim just couldn't resist. He had to put a slide in yesterday. So I was going to have a no-slide presentation, but the bigger thing is tonight's going to be a really big night. A number of you who've maybe seen me present at other things or moderate other things before have seen that I always end up with a slide with me holding a fish in it. There is no fish slide tonight. It's a big night. Not a one. So I'm sorry if you're disappointed. So we're going to talk today about tonight's objective is a pretty simple one. The basic premise is you either have data or you have access to data that you're not utilizing that could make your organization more effective. So that's really, we have Tim Bush, who's the president of Envision Health. And Tim, I don't know if you want to say anything about what you do or what you've done.
Well, we just started Envision Health about 5 months ago. I'm going to call out my partner, Kelley-Smith, who's in the audience here. Kelly, if you can wave. There she is. We're essentially doing marketing and clinical consulting for the healthcare field and payers, providers, and healthcare IT vendors. And similar to some folks in the audience, we're dealing with some folks who are startups. We're a startup ourselves, and I think Sean invited me because I've always started with the data first to inform the strategy and then use creativity last. Example of how I would respond to that. So I went to work for a company, actually it's not far away from here, Forest Health Services, and we had 10 years of data. We had 700,000 leads that have been generated over the past 10 years, a mountain of data. How are we going to grow the company? What we ended up doing was we created a regression model, and it was a predictive model. We looked at what are the factors that are actually effective and what doesn't matter. And we found some really interesting things. So it's that mountain of data that Sean's talking about, and we took it and we turned it into some insights. Things like basically our patients who are converting from a lead into actual surgery. One of the factors was how close they lived to the hospital, which seems pretty much obvious, but what we didn't know is that there was literally no drop-off between 0 and 100 miles. So if you live 3 miles from the hospital or 93 miles from the hospital, it was about the same conversion rate, which was really quite interesting. It changed how we thought about some of our marketing. And other things like our 35 to 54-year-olds was the highest converting age range. So that was actually counterintuitive. We thought it would be the younger people who had like more to live for than us, but actually it was the people who were a little bit wiser and were ready to make that sort of a life-changing decision. So that's kind of how we dealt with it, is by taking all that data and talking to someone smarter than ourselves and having them crunch all the numbers and actually create this regression. I finally got my opportunity to show my slide. All right, awesome. So there it is.
It was a really good slide, so I let him put it in. 8 o'clock, I'm like,
I don't
dude,
get
really,
the other
you're
5
killing
slides,
me.
though, do
but-
I? Okay, so I think what's changed is, like, this world did not exist when we all, like, got our degrees, whatever, how many years ago, originally.
A while ago.
A while back, okay. So, but this has sort of evolved, and what the idea is that the software that's out there and available basically addresses different problems through the pipeline and of the marketing process. And there's a ton of software out there, and it's getting better and better and more integrated, as John was saying. And it's owned by different departments in the company. So Salesforce.com might be owned by the sales department, but marketing owns some of these other pieces. But sales and marketing getting more and more intertwined, and therefore some of the best in-house departments and agencies are bringing the sales and marketing people together and saying, it's a collaborative process. And so the data is really kind of proving that out. When they work together most effectively is when the software is not only just, it's the marketing software, but the salespeople actually live it and use it every day, and they adopt it. As opposed to the olden days, they could say, I'm just a rainmaker. I don't put stuff in Salesforce. That world's changed, and people are laughing because it's true. So anyway, I won't go through all this, but it's just, I think this is what's changed for me, is that the evolution of the software has gotten so much better and so much more specific to the unique needs of what you're trying to accomplish. So I have 2 simple things. One is finding the metrics that matter and avoiding analysis paralysis. I think that finding the metrics that matter, to me, I'll pick on another former employer of mine. We were, so this is, I'll just say it's Truven Health Analytics. I don't think there's anyone here, but if you are, I'm not offending anyone here. But
Well, the good news is they can't fire you at this
Exactly.
point, so that's good. You're cool there.
They might jump me when I leave, but it's okay.
Yeah, I'll walk out with you. It's all right.
Okay. No, so we were, this is a B2B example. So we were spending lots of money on trade shows and not much money on digital marketing and search marketing and digital ads, that kind of thing. And we needed to make a culture change. So it was only in the past, people would use focus groups to try and influence their management to just do what you should have done anyway. See, those people are telling you, but now you have data. So we actually did some analysis and found out that of the leads that have been generated, we were spending about 60% of our budget on trade shows. Which seems fine. All the salespeople are happy because they have somewhere to go, and they're social people. They like to talk to people. And but the problem was only about 30% of our opportunities for sales were coming from those trade shows, and we were spending about 5% of our budget on digital marketing, mostly because, like, through my blood, sweat, and tears of making it happen against people's wishes. But that 5% resulted in 30% of the opportunities as well. So we kind of turned the whole budget on its ear and said, okay, well, we're going to, place our money where we're getting the greatest impact, to the point of diminishing returns. And really, for marketing, the question for me is, where do I spend that next marketing dollar? If I have $1, do I spend it on another trade show, or do I spend it on another digital ad? That's a decision that you have to make every single day. And your effectiveness in making that decision determines the success of your organization.
Bud and I went and saw a speaker last week, and he said that your likelihood of actually clicking through on a banner ad was lower than surviving an airplane crash. So for years, the holy grail has been to pay for your Google ad, to get your banner up there, to make it happen. And if we go back 20 years ago, that you see a billboard and it said 100,000 people drive down I-94 every day, put your ad here. And so somehow we were supposed to get impressions. Now, I have driven down I-94 into Detroit, and I think the only thing I remember is a lot of people are running for judge, and that if you're in an auto accident, there are lawyers for 15 miles who are ready to help you. As a basis for my question, now that we're getting, if you will, over-impressioned, so if I was seeing impressions before the internet, 80 a day from driving and TV commercials, when I'm on the internet, I'm getting an impression every 30 seconds. Do impressions matter that much? Or how do you get, and I know this is Bud's thing, how do I get targeted impressions? There is no point in showing me a Maybelline ad. I don't wear a lot of makeup. And when I do, it's L'Oreal.
Excellent question. Anybody want to jump on that one? I've got some answers, but you guys are the panelists.
So I did a little digital advertising for GM. I actually worked for a digital agency and experienced part of what Bud's talking about. And literally, we did, because they're spending their advertising budgets. I mean, they're spending almost $1 billion on digital, which is amazing, right? And we spent $21 million just on local digital search spending, and then we started doing targeting based on putting cookies on your machine based on where you had been. I would just say it's getting better and better. You're less and less likely to see Maybelline ads. You're more and more likely to see Field and Stream if that's your interest. You're more and more likely to see GMC versus Cadillac ads if that's your interest. And the analytics that's available behind the scenes is scary, and I think it gets down to almost an ethical question. I don't think the law has kept pace with what they can track about you. And that's something that we're going to see in the coming years is more and more, probably rightfully so, like legislation and regulation around some of what the marketers are able to do, because it's really scary. And the bottom line, it comes down to the ROI shows that it still makes sense to put more digital ads out there. And the ROI shows that, because the marketers, the smart ones, are spending it in the right places where they're, even though it's a 0.03% click-through rate, of those 0.03 clicks, you get a measurable number of leads. You get a measured number of car sales at the end of the day.
I agree.
It's going to change healthcare too. I mean, you're able to navigate these rules and target people based on, unfortunately, diseases, and it's actually happening, and it's going to work, in the future, I think, much more effectively. So there's a huge engagement problem in healthcare. I won't get too deep on that, but I think digital marketing is one of the answers. The simplest thing to do is just clear your cookies and clear out the cache on your machine. But we did some research when I was at GM. Only about 30% of people do that, even over a 90-day period of time. So we can still target 70% of the people, and that's enough. But that's a good thing for you to do. You're smart enough to do that. Most people aren't.
This actually goes back to one of my premises, and John's heard this before, and in fact, Tim and I tested this when he was a client of ours. People on the internet are stupid. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. So, for example, we ran banner campaigns for the company that Tim worked for, and we could track burnout. We could watch banners as they started to decline in performance. All we did was change the background color, and the click rate would go right back up. People are stupid. So I think that clearing the cache and doing things like that, like anonymous browsing, yep, I think those are real factors. But I think when you start to look at the numbers of the masses, it's going to be a long.
The question is, isn't Facebook the ultimate targeted newsfeed? Newsfeed, like that's what they're trying to do. And secondly, I think a lot of younger people, they like being able to get the right advertising and the right marketing and having that delivered in front of them. Because if I'm a runner and when I'm searching and I see sneakers, that makes a difference to me. If I'm a hockey player and I see hockey stuff, that makes a difference to me, and I wouldn't want to fake the browser out from giving me good information. So just 2 points.
I would agree. I think the younger generation is much more receptive to it, and ultimately, I would say, but anyone is, I think it's a basic human need. People actually appreciate and enjoy being sold to, and if you do it well, you do it respectfully. And I think that if you're as good marketers as with integrity and with ethics, you can do that, and that's part of the art, and it's not part of the science. But like, look at Amazon.com. They're one of the most aggressive digital marketers in the world, and it hasn't hurt them. Zappos is one of the most successful shoe. I see a lot of ladies' heads nodding. Like if you can go online, if you hit the Zappos site, check out other websites, you'll not only see a banner ad, but you'll see a banner ad with the green shoes that you put on your wish list in the banner ad. And they're like, come on, you forgot. So they know it's scary what they know.
Are you buying women's shoes again?
I've stopped.
Okay, all right.
I swore.
Cool. I thought we talked about that, but okay. Yeah. Anyway. Ask, which is, okay, if you were an entrepreneur, where would you start? What would you start looking at? Where do you dive into all this? Does that seem like an accurate restatement of what you said? Okay.
Go ahead. I would say one is you have to identify your targets. I think it's a place to start. And two is you have to get started. And I'll expand on that. But to identify your targets, everyone needs to identify who am I going after? Who's the most likely buyer of my solution or product? And identifying that is an art and a science all in itself. Once you've identified that, you need to build a database. You need a place to put the database, like the slide I showed before. The second piece is you need to get started. Well, obviously, right? But that's actually not so easy. We're talking to entrepreneur firms all the time in healthcare, and it's amazing what they've spent on their product, and they have not invested. They have no idea who exactly they're selling to. And so I guess for the part B of that, I think you need to find someone knowledgeable. If you don't have someone that's their core competency or on your team, there are resources like PWB and other agencies, or like ourselves in healthcare, where that's all we think about 24/7, and they're going to help you much more efficiently figure out where do you spend that first marketing dollar and where do you spend the next marketing dollar. That local software company I mentioned, someone approached me at a trade show after I'd left the company for 5 years and said, "Tim, can you give me the password to the Google Analytics account?" I'm amazed. They had not looked at it in 5 years.
I am astounded at the number of people who don't say, okay, on a regular basis, I'm going to go look at my Google Analytics traffic. So that's one that I would throw out there. If I'm an entrepreneur, I think that combination that Bud's started, I think that's a great idea. And in fact, actually, we do that with our own AdWords. We've always run an AdWords program, more because we wanted to learn what was going on out there than really attracting traffic. We do more of that really more organically. But AdWords has been huge as a learning tool for us. Other questions? All right. So we talked about KPIs a little earlier. Let's talk a little bit about, we got to go back to another buzzword, marketing dashboards. So what are some of the kinds of things, or how do you evaluate tools that go into a marketing dashboard? Or are there just some that you just go, I got to have that, that's got to be in there?
I like what Bud said about cost per acquisition being at the bottom, but to my earlier point about metrics that matter, you have to figure out what are the metrics that actually drive that acquisition number. And that's, I guess, back to the point about you develop several different hypotheses. And if you're using, the nice thing about digital advertising, it allows a forum where you're getting constant feedback, it's all measurable, and you can develop hypotheses, you can implement them as quickly as you can come up with them, and measure it, and tweak, and change. And I think your metrics will change over time, but you're going to find over time these are the things that most likely result in my cost per acquisition going down, and measure those things, and that which is measured gets improved.
I would add to that, and I talked a lot about this at the search marketing workshop on Friday, this idea that your communications plan should be tied to your marketing plan, which, here's a neat idea, should be tied to your business plan. So there's probably some things you've identified in your business plan that you're trying to accomplish. Probably somewhere in your dashboard that ought to get reflected. Am I doing things that help lead me towards that goal? And interconnecting those things is one of those things that I look at and I'm like, duh. And I'm amazed the number of people who've said, oh yeah, we could probably go back and look at that.
I would agree. And I go back to the point that sales and marketing is getting more and more intertwined. And whenever I would do a marketing plan, I would always talk to the VP of sales, and we would share our plans with each other in advance and say, well, if you're going to do that, there's no way I ought to be doing this. And we come to an agreement on what is working, what's not working. And one of the hardest things to do at a company is to stop doing what's not working. And there's a lot of momentum behind things that don't work.
Yeah, just
And it's
ask
hard to
Kmart.
stop. Exactly.
It's been working for Kmart for decades,
Yeah.
although not working so well lately.
Yeah.
So you've all been doing this for a while, been interfacing with data for a while. Do any of you have a really excellent use of data that you'd like to share with the audience, or a really poor one, one where it's like, boy, they just completely missed that? Stump the panel.
All right.
Awesome.
So I'll go back to the example where we looked at we did this regression analysis on the 700,000 records, and one of the things that I was trying to prove at that time was, and this was about 10 years ago, 2004, and we were trying to prove to the management team that they were advertising through TV and print, and they had all kinds of metrics around TV and print, and I was trying to prove, well, guys, you need to invest a little bit in some of this digital stuff. Let's just put them up against each other. The numbers will tell us the truth. And that was a good example, because we found as we started breaking it down by modality, and we'd say, well, TV is costing you $90 per lead, and print is costing you $70 a lead. And they'd say, yeah, but it's unlimited. I can buy as much as I want in my territories, and I need a lot of leads. I said, well, guys, if you find a modality that converts at a higher rate, you don't need as many leads. And so we found out is that the actually direct mail was one of the fascinating things we found out. We could buy data from the DMV, and it has height, weight, and age on it. So we can tell how old you are. We can tell your BMI, and we know if you need weight loss surgery. And from that, we can determine if you bought a car in the last 3 years, you probably have good insurance because you probably have a job. And so we inferred that you had good commercial insurance, and guess what? It was about $10 a lead instead of $90 a lead.
And by the way, as the creative agency who was working with Tim at the time for this, figuring out how to craft a creative message that says, we know you're fat, is a little challenging.
And people do underreport their weight by about 25%, just so you know, at the DMV. It's kind of interesting.
But yeah, that was always kind of fun. It's like, okay, how do I find a nice way to say I know you could use this?
But it was great. You guys did a phenomenal job. But we proved the case, and we literally took $3 million out of TV advertising. We invested an additional $1 million in digital advertising, and we literally doubled the business in 2 years. So it was really an effective use of data to change a culture and change a management team's opinions, sort of this ingrained conventional wisdom about TV and radio. And we're going to keep raining on it until it just happens. And it's just like, it doesn't just happen. Impressions are not the answer in the end. I think to second that point, I think it's context. And one of the problems with what Covisint was doing was because they were marketing across 6 different vertical markets. And they try to use the same cookie cutter formula for each of the vertical markets, including healthcare and automotive and other, gas and energy and other industries. And what Sean's getting at too, there's certain nuances within industries that are counterintuitive, and you can't really know it until you're knee deep in it. And once you get into it, you realize, oh yeah, when it rains, people don't buy boats as much, things like that.
And that's actually, Tim, that's a really good point. And I've kind of heard all of you touch on that thread a little bit today of sort of understanding your market and what's unique about your market and how your data can yield you value, how your data can really point you in the right direction. And there's no one-size-fits-all. Tim, I know in the world of healthcare with team-based buying decisions,
yeah,
that's where you live these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think even within healthcare, there's hospitals, there's health plans, there's federal government, state government. They all have different buying tendencies, and it's amazing how different they can be. Now, the real art and science, though, is figuring out what are those horizontal plays that really resonate across all industries, and supply chain management might be similar in many different industries, for example, but some industries just don't have the pain points that healthcare has. No, I agree with storytelling is so important. It's like the tribal knowledge thing. Information is passed along, but people learn and understand through stories. They don't learn and understand by reading rows in spreadsheets. And I think that's really what you're trying to make people do in a world where information is doubling every couple of years, and there's mountains of information. You're trying to sift through and find what's important. You're actually, part of your job is to entertain. And by entertaining, you will also convey information that's necessary. And that's when it's done artfully and skillfully.
There you go.
But I think that's part of the reason why you tend to work with people that are familiar throughout your career. And sometimes, Sean and I have worked together in 3 or 4 different capacities, including when we were together in the same company. So, but we've gained tribal knowledge that we can almost speak without using words sometimes. And it's like you get it, he gets it. I don't have to explain it, he knows it, and we just move on to step 3 and 4. So I think that's part of what you do, because you get frustrated having to explain it to people that haven't lived it.
I'm going to get the hook in a minute. So the first thing I want to do is thank our 3 panelists this evening. I think you guys had some cool insights. As well as our sponsor, Ann Arbor Spark, and the cool guys at Russell Video that let the people out there on the internet see this and enable you to go back and watch it again if you go, what did he say again? And with that, I think I will turn it back to Don.